The number of his Instagram followers climbed at a dizzying rate. Old posts, once ignored, were now flooded with comments from new fans digging through his history. It was only then that Ethan Vance began to feel the tangible reality of being an actor. He had a strong urge to engage with them, to chat, but feared a misstep. After getting Vanessa's approval, he cautiously replied to a few of the top comments, but his focus remained squarely on his work. The public service announcement had been brief, offering little room to showcase his range. His true debut, in his mind, was the high fantasy series currently in production, Ethelgard's Blade. But filming was scheduled to wrap in January, followed by months of ING, sound mixing, and network reviews. It wouldn't air until early next summer at the earliest. Many actors viewed their projects as their children, and Ethan was no different. The thought of waiting another 6 months for his first child to be seen by the world felt like an eternity. After several days on set, Ethan had fallen into the rhythm of production life. His days were long, beginning before dawn and ending late into the night. He ate every meal, save for breakfast, from the craft services table alongside the rest of the crew. He had also grown accustomed to the director, Marcus Ray, berating him for being too slow. The first time it happened, a jolt of fear had gone through him. But he soon discovered that Marcus, after every explosive outburst, would find a quiet moment to approach him, his anger replaced by a sheepish, mumbled apology. The fear subsided, and now Ethan could listen to the director's tirades with a calm detachment. His relationship with Noah Thorne, his stunt double, however, remained strained. The man's demeanor was perpetually somber, and he rarely spoke. Attempts at conversation were futile. On several occasions, Ethan had tried to initiate a chat, only to be met with Noah's impenetrable trifecta of "yeah, okay, and got it," which effectively ended any exchange. When Ethan mentioned his difficulty to the stunt coordinator, the man just shrugged, remarking that it was better than being on the receiving end of Noah's sharp tongue. Ethan considered this. While Noah always looked like he was in a foul mood, he had never once been openly hostile to him. Perhaps, Ethan mused, there was a sliver of goodwill there. The thought eased his mind, and he stopped agonizing over Noah's silence, no longer determined to force a connection with the brooding man. That evening, during the dinner break, Ethan bypassed Noah and instead sat with his assistant, Chloe Reed. They began discussing the upcoming Golden Eagle Television Festival. Chloe informed him that Vanessa had already arranged everything with Marcus before he and Leo had even joined the production. She explained that on the night of the 22nd, he and Leo would fly back to Los Angeles for the festival and then catch a red-eye flight back to the set the following morning. Their absence was accounted for. The production would shoot scenes without them. Ethan mumbled under his breath about the tight schedule, his voice muffled by the mouthful of catering. He had hoped the festival would be a chance to spend more time with Julian Croft. Chloe didn't catch what he said. Ethan just offered a weak laugh and was about to return to his meal when a figure suddenly appeared before him, casting a long shadow over their small table. It was Noah. Ethan looked up, confused, and asked if he needed something. Noah said nothing, merely fixing him with an intense glare before turning on his heel and walking away. Chloe watched him go, then turned to Ethan, her expression puzzled. She wondered aloud if Ethan had made an enemy of him. Ethan insisted he hadn't, though a flicker of doubt crossed his mind. Chloe remarked on how strange the man was, suggesting it might be best to keep his distance. Just as Ethan was about to respond, a commotion erupted from across the lot. Chloe noted that it seemed Sophia Monroe had returned. The brief period of tranquility on set was officially over. Ethan recalled Leo's S and sighed. Sophia was rarely in a good mood, and upon her return, she immediately began finding fault. She spotted the production assistant who had accidentally stepped on her dress a few days prior, still bustling about, and marched directly toward Marcus Ray, her voice sharp with displeasure. She demanded to know why the man was still on her set when she had made it clear she didn't want to see him. Marcus, who had been enjoying a rare moment of peace during the dinner break, felt a vain throb in his temple. He raised an eyebrow, ready to engage, but Leo Hayes, who was sitting beside him, placed a restraining hand on his shoulder. Leo murmured a quiet plea for him to think of his blood pressure. Marcus took a deep breath, forcing a measure of calm. He pointed out that it had been an accident, that the PA had apologized profusely and had already been reprimanded. It was a minor mistake not worth holding on to. The crew was largely Marcus's own team, the PA included. He had no intention of firing someone over such a triviality, especially when Sophia was so clearly in the wrong. The rest of the crew watched, their sympathies lying with the director. Sophia's eyebrows shot up as she insisted it wasn't about the mistake itself, but about the fact that the man had displeased her. That was the final straw for Marcus. He slammed his food container down, but before he could unleash his fury, Sophia's agent, Camille, materialized. Camille, who was also Sophia's cousin, pulled the reluctant actress behind her. With a smile that didn't reach her eyes, Camille apologized to Marcus, explaining that Sophia was exhausted from juggling 2 projects and was therefore a bit on edge. She promised to speak with her. While one typically doesn't argue with a smiling face, Camille's insincere grin grated on Marcus. Still, for the sake of the evening's shoot, he let it go with a cold snort, remarking that she certainly needed to manage her client better. He muttered that if everyone behaved so unreasonably, the show would never get made. Camille continued to smile, promising she would, before leading the scowling Sophia away. Ethan watched the scene unfold, murmuring about how obedient Sophia was to her agent. Chloe explained that Camille was her cousin and had been the one to get Sophia into acting in the first place. As both family and mentor, Camille held significant influence. Ethan expressed his surprise at how much Chloe knew. She just smiled, saying that after years of running from set to set with different actors, you pick up a lot of gossip. She mentioned that her first client had been a star named Regina Cole, and she'd also worked briefly with Alistair Page as head Leo. She figured she was usually assigned to newcomers because she was meticulous, and once they were established, another assistant would take over. This made Ethan wonder if he would be getting a new assistant soon. Chloe considered it, then said it wasn't certain. Vanessa had acknowledged how taxing it was to constantly start over with new talent and had mentioned letting her stick with one person for a while. Ethan was relieved. He felt more comfortable with Chloe than he would with a stranger. As the dinner break ended, Ethan stood and saw Camille speaking sternly to Sophia, their expressions equally grim. He sighed again. With Sophia back, the next day's schedule included a 3-person scene with him, Leo, and her. If anyone was afraid, it was Leo. In the script, Ethan's character was merely an observer, while Leo's character, the protagonist, had intimate scenes with Sophia's. It wasn't that Leo had never filmed a kiss scene before. Most of his work had been in romantic dramas, making him a seasoned leading man. But the actresses he'd worked with were either genuinely pleasant or very good at pretending to be. None were as openly volatile as Sophia. This made Leo deeply uneasy. He clung to Ethan's arm, shamelessly pleading for protection should Sophia become violent. Ethan tried to reassure him, reasoning that she wouldn't dare attack a fellow actor. Leo wasn't convinced, muttering that his kissing skills were, in fact, subpar. That day's schedule included their first kiss scene, and Leo's fear had reached its peak. Ethan was surprised. He'd seen Leo's previous work and thought it was fine. Leo explained that all the bad takes were ed out, confessing that he often accidentally bit his scene partner's tongue. Ethan nodded sagely, commenting that Leo probably deserved any retaliation he received. Leo felt a sharp sense of betrayal, protesting that it wasn't his fault. He just had no real-life experience. Then a thought struck him, and he asked Ethan if he was any good at it. Ethan wasn't sure if very good was the right term, but he was certainly proficient. Kissing had been the first thing Julian had taught him, a skill he had since mastered and even improved upon. A familiar ache of longing for Julian surfaced. He had been thinking about him constantly since leaving Elle, even dreaming of him. So this was what a long-distance relationship felt like, even if it was one-sided on his part. He told Leo he was adequate, at least enough not to injure anyone. Leo connected the dots, remembering Ethan's connection to Julian Croft. He scoffed, turning away to catch a nap. They were on their way to the location, a small, secluded redwood grove Marcus had discovered on the outskirts of the Angeles National Forest. The early morning light was just beginning to filter through the trees. Ethan gazed out the window, wondering if Julian was also on his way to work. Upon arrival, they were greeted by the sound of Sophia complaining about the insects. Marcus seemed to have run out of energy to argue and simply ignored her. Ethan watched them, quietly asking Leo why Marcus would cast her as the lead if their relationship was so toxic. Leo explained Sophia's unique situation. Her agency, Stellar Arts, had been a small, unknown firm. Sophia started with minor roles until she auditioned for a major film director and was cast on the spot. That supporting role was her breakthrough. With a prestigious CR to her name, her career took off. She was naturally gifted, with striking looks and a sharp mind. More opportunities followed, and she became a household name. She was Stellar Arts' sole pillar, carrying the entire company on her shoulders. In return, the agency poured all its resources into her. The pressure was immense. Ethan shuddered at the thought. To him, the ideal life was one lived for oneself, free from the expectations of others. But in society, such complete freedom was an illusion. Sophia represented the other extreme, burdened by the hopes and livelihoods of so many people. It was a heavy weight, one that perhaps explained her abrasive personality. Thinking about it, Ethan found her less intimidating, but Leo remained terrified. He stuck to Ethan's side whenever they weren't required to be apart for a scene. Before one of their scenes, Sophia eyed Leo huddled next to Ethan. She raised an eyebrow and asked if he was afraid of her. Leo stammered a denial. She let out a low hymn that he'd better not be. Despite the tension, both were professionals. Once the cameras were rolling, they inhabited their characters, leaving personal feelings behind. The kiss scene went more smoothly than Leo had anticipated. Perhaps spurred by Ethan's earlier comment, he focused intensely and managed not to bite her, thus escaping her wrath. They had a night shoot, wrapping up in the grove around 4 in the morning. As compensation, Marcus gave them the next day off until 4 in the afternoon. Ethan slept until 3, groggily fumbling for his phone under his pillow. He saw he'd missed a call from Julian at 2. He'd put his phone on Do Not Disturb before sleeping. Regret washed over him. He shot up in bed and immediately called back, but it went to voicemail. Panic began to set in. He worried Julian was angry and ignoring him. His fear was unfounded. Half an hour later, Julian called back, explaining he'd been in an important meeting. Ethan's panic shifted to guilt. He was the one who missed the first call. Julian shouldn't be the one explaining. He apologized profusely, telling Julian he'd been asleep. A soft chuckle came from the other end of the line. Julian told him it was no big deal and that he should relax, teasingly adding that he didn't bite. Ethan thought to himself that he most certainly did, having consumed not just his body, but his heart as well. He asked Julian why he had called. Julian explained that the PSA's reception had been better than expected, and several offers had come in. Vanessa had been planning to screen them, but Julian thought it would be better for Ethan to choose for himself. Ethan hesitated, pointing out that Vanessa had far more experience. Julian insisted that while an agent's guidance was crucial, an actor needed to develop his own instincts. He framed it as a test of Ethan's judgment. Ethan agreed. Julian listed the offers: a role in a new corporate drama directed by the acclaimed David Chan, a lead in a romantic comedy from a director famous for the genre, a few reality TV shows, and a celebrity talent competition. Ethan couldn't believe it when Julian mentioned the last one, asking if it was the kind aspiring pop stars went on. He wasn't a professional singer, and he couldn't dance at all. He was an actor. It made no sense. Julian, seemingly holding back laughter, relayed the show's producers' reasoning. They thought Ethan had a natural charisma that would attract a huge fan base. Ethan recognized it for what it was: a trap disguised as flattery. He voiced his suspicion that they were setting him up. Julian praised his insight, confirming that such shows often used actors as temporary ratings bait, only to discard them when their novelty wore off. After considering the options, Ethan suggested that David Chen's drama seemed like the best choice, reasoning that it would solidify his agency's relationship with a respected director. Julian made a soft sound of agreement, noting that Ethan was very considerate of the company. Ethan grinned, saying of course he was. It was Julian's company. Julian commended his loyalty but then offered a different perspective. The best strategic move, he argued, would be the romantic comedy. The market for them was reliable, especially during holiday seasons. Based on social media reactions, a rom-com would be a perfect fit for his image. But Ethan thought of Leo filming the kiss scene with Sophia and felt a deep unease. If his heart were free, he could throw himself into intimate scenes without a second thought. But it wasn't. It belonged to Julian. Julian told him to think it over, that there was no rush. Just then, Ethan heard a deep, resonant male voice in the background called Julian by his first name. Julian then told Ethan he had to go and ended the call. Sebastian Shaw's return had been unexpected. Julian had run into him at the elevators that morning. Sebastian greeted him with a warm smile and a brief hug, explaining he'd flown in from overseas the day before. He was back in the States because his mother was having health issues, and he also needed to discuss a joint Japan project with Julian. His primary focus was managing the agency's Asian market expansion, so he was rarely in the country. From Sebastian's tone, Julian gathered his mother's condition was serious and offered his condolences without prying. Sebastian also mentioned that his divorce needed to be finalized, a process he seemed weary of. It was his wife's wish, he admitted with a sigh of regret, lamenting that he hadn't been there for her when she needed him most. Julian clapped a supportive hand on his shoulder. They had worked together for years and knew each other well, though they didn't interfere in one another's personal lives. Julian took Sebastian out for lunch, and they caught up. It had been Sebastian who had first invited Julian into the film industry. They had met in college, when Sebastian was already a major shareholder in Zenith Arts and Julian was a student with a keen interest in the business. They found common ground and a shared goal: to reform the company. They remained allies, with Julian managing domestic operations and Sebastian handling the international side. They were more like comrades in arms than colleagues. Sebastian mentioned he'd seen the recent buzz online, stating it as a fact that Ethan was one of Julian's finds. Julian asked if his tastes were really that obvious. Sebastian confirmed with a smirk that they were, remarking that Julian had always had a thing for the earnest, slightly naive types. Julian grumbled that it sounded like an insult. Sebastian just smiled. After a moment, Julian asked how he could tell. He had to admit it was true. He was drawn to sincerity and a certain clumsiness in people. But that initial fondness was a long way from love. Love, for him, was something that grew slowly, imperceptibly over time with people like his college friend Samuel or his former client Alistair. Sebastian thought for a moment before answering. It was just a feeling he got, he said, from the way Julian showed an unusual amount of patience and interest in such individuals. He then suggested that perhaps it was time for Julian to consider settling down, that it might bring stability. Julian deflected, saying his parents were still an issue. Sebastian urged him not to wait too long, that the longer he delayed telling them the truth, the more betrayed they would feel. Julian sighed, saying he'd deal with it after the new year. Before his afternoon meeting with Sebastian, Julian had tried calling Ethan about the job offers, but there was no answer. As the phone rang unanswered, an unfamiliar anxiety crept in. Ethan always answered his calls immediately. It was not unusual for an actor on set to be unreachable, and he knew Ethan wasn't going to vanish, yet he couldn't shake the feeling of unease. He forced himself to focus on work. An hour later, Ethan called back, his voice rushed and flustered. Hearing his panic, Julian felt a strange sense of satisfaction. When he hung up, Sebastian teased him about his little puppy calling. Julian just smiled and told him to get back to business. After the call, Ethan was dazed. His intuition screamed that the man who had called Julian by his first name was someone important. Another lover, perhaps? The voice alone suggested someone handsome and confident. He felt a familiar pang of jealousy, a dark cloud settling over him. He knew this obsessive thinking wasn't healthy and would eventually affect his work. If he couldn't succeed as an actor, he would be worthless to Julian, and then he would surely be cast aside. He needed to talk to someone. After wrapping for the day, he called his sister, Maya. He tried to explain his feelings without giving too much away, describing an obsessive fixation on one person, where every action and word dictated his mood. He confessed that even being scolded by this person made him happy, and that he felt anxious whenever their attention wasn't on him. Maya was silent for a long moment before asking if he was being manipulated. Ethan quickly denied it, insisting he was just being foolish. Maya was alarmed by his state, but when she asked if he had fallen for some girl, Ethan stammered out a vague affirmative. The person wasn't a girl, but that was a problem for another time. Maya questioned whether he was even allowed to date, given the public scrutiny of celebrities. Ethan recalled Vanessa's instructions about reporting any relationship to the agency. His sister was shocked that her clueless brother had finally developed feelings for someone. Her comment stung. She then told him that their father had recently expressed concern, wondering if the reason Ethan had never shown interest in girls was because he was gay. A new wave of anxiety washed over him. He had forgotten about his father, a traditional man who would never accept having a gay son. His awkward silence on the phone was telling. Maya hesitantly asked if it was true. Ethan deflected, changing the subject to work and his responsibility to support them. He tried to backtrack, claiming his earlier confession was just about his boss, a misunderstanding. Maya chided him for being so dramatic and wasting her emotional energy. She advised him to be patient with his career and not to worry if his boss didn't seem to notice him yet. If things didn't work out, he could always come home. Her support was touching. He asked how she was doing, if things were okay with her husband. Maya, now raising 2 children, must have had it hard. Ethan offered to hire a nanny for her. Her response was strangely subdued. She claimed they weren't comfortable with strangers in the house and that she could handle the kids. Her sudden lack of energy and evasiveness set off alarm bells in Ethan's mind. something was wrong. But he was stuck on set and could only resolve to visit and find out what was happening after filming wrapped. The next morning, Ethan saw Noah eating breakfast in a corner of the set. As he passed, he offered his customary good morning. Noah looked up and returned a quiet morning. That was usually the end of their interaction, but as Ethan started to walk away, Noah told him to stop. He and Chloe exchanged a look. Noah stood and faced Ethan, his dark eyes intense. He asked what his deal was. Ethan was utterly confused. Noah elaborated, pointing out that for a while Ethan had pestered him with conversation every day, but for the past 2 days he had been silent. He demanded to know what it meant. Ethan stammered that he thought Noah didn't like him talking to him all the time. Noah's response was a simple, "It's fine." He then clarified that Ethan could, in fact, talk to him. With that, he walked away, leaving Ethan baffled. Chloe translated for him. "I think he wants to be your friend." Ethan was shocked, wondering why Noah couldn't just say so. Chloe chalked it up to him being awkward and proud. Ethan, who had never encountered a real-life tsundere, was amazed. He realized he had misjudged the man. Chloe admitted she had too, thinking Noah's intense stares were signs of dislike. Ethan figured that just as some people are born with a stern face like Marcus, others might be born with a gloomy gaze. With that understanding, he resumed his efforts to befriend Noah, much to Leo's astonishment, who had never seen an actor become friends with their own stunt double. Ethan didn't see the issue. They were all just actors, after all. Time flew, and soon it was late November. The Golden Eagle Festival was upon them. After the day's shoot, Ethan and Leo rushed to the airport for their flight back to L. Leo, ever languid, immediately grabbed a pillow in the car and fell asleep. Ethan, in contrast, was buzzing with an energy so intense he felt he could run all the way to the airport. He was finally going to see Julian after so long apart. Even if it was just for one day, it was enough to make him ecstatic. He clutched his phone, thinking he needed to act fast. He called Julian and asked if he had plans that evening. Julian said he did. Ethan's spirits plummeted. He was about to say he wouldn't bother him when Julian continued, explaining that he was taking his dog, Blaze, for a walk in the park near the office before heading home. Hope surged back. Ethan asked if he could meet him. Julian agreed but warned him to be careful. He was more recognizable now. He suggested the same discreet hotel as before, telling Ethan to check in first and he would arrive later. Ethan's heart sank a little. Fame was good, but it meant their meetings would become even more restricted. 2 hours later, they landed at LAX. Their travel had been kept secret to avoid a media circus, but a few well-connected fans had gotten Leo's itinerary and were waiting with long-lens cameras. Leo sighed, whispering to Ethan that they should separate to save him time. Ethan nodded and left with Chloe through a different exit. On the way to the hotel, Julian sent him a slightly shaky video. In it, Blaze, a Samoyed, sat obediently before him. Julian's voice instructed the dog to go, and the fluffy white dog shot off like an arrow, catching a frisbee in midair. A faint chuckle could be heard in the background. Blaze trotted back, dropping the frisbee and nudging Julian for praise. A pale, elegant hand entered the frame, gently ruffling the dog's fur. Julian's voice, soft and warm, told Blaze to look at the camera, then prompted, "Say that." The dog responded with an enthusiastic woof. Ethan was practically melting in the back seat. Chloe asked with concern what was wrong, why his face was so red. Lost in a daze, Ethan mumbled that Blaze was his and Julian's child. Alarmed, Chloe asked if he had a fever. Ethan snapped out of it, embarrassed, and assured her he was fine. He arrived at the hotel and checked into the suite where they had first stayed. Nothing had happened that night, but it was where all his best memories had begun. He sat on the same sofa where Julian had fallen asleep, leaning back and staring at the ceiling, lost in thought. His eyes grew heavy. He had been working all day, and now, finally relaxed, drowsiness washed over him. He woke from a short nap to find Julian's captivating face looking down at him, upside down and very close. His voice was hoarse as he murmured Julian's name. Julian smiled, a light kiss landing on his forehead as he teased him for falling asleep when he was the one who had requested the meeting. Ethan, now fully awake, his heart pounding, scrambled to his feet, apologizing for being so tired. Julian told him not to worry, that the night was still young. He mentioned he was covered in dog hair and needed a shower. As he turned to go, Ethan wrapped his arms around him from behind, holding him tightly. His voice was muffled against Julian's back as he confessed how much he had missed him. He could feel the frantic beating of his own heart against Julian's back. Unseen by Ethan, a flicker of uncertainty crossed Julian's eyes. Ethan didn't expect to hear the words, "I missed you too." Julian's acceptance of his embrace was enough. But still, he pushed his luck, gathering his courage to ask if he could join him in the shower. A laugh was in Julian's voice as he noted that Ethan was getting bold. The bathroom was enormous. They made love under the spray of the shower and again in the large bathtub, water splashing everywhere. Afterward, Ethan wrapped a towel around a dripping Julian and carried him to the bed. Covered in sweat himself, he said he was going to rinse off. But Julian unwrapped the towel and sat up, looping his bare arms around Ethan's neck. His voice was a near command, yet it sounded like a plea. He told Ethan to hold him a little longer. Ethan willingly complied, his hands exploring the smooth skin of Julian's back. He thought about how much he loved touching him, how it never felt like enough. They held each other in silence. Ethan noticed that Julian seemed to have lost weight. He finally broke the silence, asking if Blaze had been good. Julian murmured that the dog was wonderful and that he was very fond of him. Ethan smiled, happy that Blaze was keeping him company in his absence. After Ethan showered, they settled into bed. Julian always slept nestled against Ethan's chest, his hand clutching Ethan's arm or shirt. Ethan suspected it was a sign of a deep-seated need for security. He thought about Julian's past, about the ex-boyfriend named Samuel who had likely been the source of that insecurity. But knowing this didn't help. There seemed to be nothing he could do for Julian, a fact that frustrated him deeply. They slept until 10 the next morning, a rare late start for Julian, who seemed completely relaxed. That evening was the festival. Julian mentioned he needed to introduce Ethan to someone. A bell went off in Ethan's mind. Ethan was only attending the festival as an observer, unlike Leo, who was a nominee. He had the day free. Julian, however, still had work to do from the hotel. Ethan wanted to be near him but didn't want to be a distraction. He sat on the bed with headphones on, content to just watch Julian work. During a break, Julian noticed him staring and beckoned him over. He gently pinched Ethan's cheek, asking if he was an idiot for just staring like that. Ethan smiled, saying he had nothing else to do and just wanted to look at him. Julian's expression softened. After a moment, he suggested that since Ethan was free, he should go meet Leah Serrano ahead of time. Ethan was slated to walk the red carpet with Leah that evening. She was another rising star at their agency, but since she had been on location filming, they had never met. Chloe had told him that Leah was a bit cold and socially awkward. The idea of meeting a senior colleague was good, but Julian's suggestion stung. After being apart for so long, He wanted every possible moment with him. He lingered, hoping Julian would ask him to stay, but Julian simply told him to go. Ethan wasn't the only one feeling uneasy. After the suite door clicked shut, Julian let out a quiet sigh. The month-long separation seemed to have intensified Ethan's feelings. He had sensed it the night before. Ethan had been more proactive, more affectionate than ever, his kisses lingering as if he couldn't bear to let go. It made Julian anxious. He had thrown himself into work that morning as a distraction. He didn't stay in the hotel long. Sebastian called and asked to meet, so he went. He found Sebastian at a cafe, remarking that it felt like a date. Sebastian shrugged, saying a change of scenery was good for business talk. But Julian knew Sebastian well. If it was important, they would have met at the office. This was a pretext to check on him. Sebastian noted that Julian didn't look happy. Julian was surprised it was so obvious. Sebastian pointed out that his eyes gave him away when he forced a smile. Julian admitted he was feeling anxious about his lover. Sebastian remarked that this was more than nothing, reminding him that the last person to make him this anxious was Alistair. Julian bristled at the name, telling him not to bring it up. Sebastian apologized, then asked if this was about the person he'd been on the phone with. Julian didn't deny it. Sebastian sighed, suggesting it was time for Julian to let go of the past and stop resisting someone's affection. Julian clutched his coffee cup, his thumb tracing its smooth surface. He confessed that he couldn't trust himself. He had been wrong about people twice before. He couldn't afford a third mistake. His hesitation wasn't about distrusting others' feelings, but about his own flawed judgment. It had become a deep-seated issue. It was why he'd let a genuinely good man like Xavier go, and why he couldn't bring himself to fully accept Ethan's sincerity now. He admitted it was selfish, that he would rather hurt others than risk being hurt himself. He reminded Sebastian that this was precisely why he chose to have lovers he paid for. It created an unequal power dynamic where he was in absolute control. He paid for their compliance, which gave him a convenient justification for when he eventually discarded them. Sebastian pointed out the flaw in his logic. The entire arrangement was supposed to bring him peace of mind, yet here he was, anxious and unsettled. He urged Julian to stop torturing himself, to try accepting instead of resisting. Julian quickly denied having feelings for Ethan, repeating the denial, which Sebastian teasingly pointed out was a sign of guilt. They had been friends for years and could be blunt with each other. Julian retorted that Sebastian should sort out his own life. He was in the middle of a divorce, after all, before trying to manage his. Sebastian conceded the point with a wry smile. Julian got up to leave, saying he needed to prepare for the festival that evening. As he left, Sebastian asked who he was walking the red carpet with. Julian replied that he wasn't walking it. He was a producer, not a celebrity. The spotlight was for Leo and the others. Sebastian lamented that it was a waste of a handsome face, one that could be used for the agency's promotion. Julian just laughed, saying that no matter how good-looking he was, to the fans he was just the evil corporate suit, and it would probably backfire. On the way to the venue that evening, Sebastian, who had insisted on driving, announced that they would be walking the red carpet together. Julian was incredulous, asking who would want to walk a red carpet with a straight man. Sebastian just smiled mysteriously, assuring Julian he wouldn't regret it. Julian had a bad feeling about what his friend was planning, but he agreed. Ethan and Leah were about to step onto the carpet. Leah, in a stunning black off-the-shoulder gown with a long train, noticed Ethan's distraction and gently called his name. He snapped back to the present, apologizing and bending to help her with her train. Their outfits were a coordinated pair, Her black gown was complemented by his tailored white suit over a black shirt, unbuttoned at the collar. It was his first major public appearance, and the media was buzzing with curiosity about Zenith Art's newest star. When they stepped out of the car, they were swarmed by reporters, their questions and flashing cameras a chaotic assault on the senses. It was overwhelming, but Vanessa had security clear a path, promising a formal press conference after the event. Inside, Ethan scanned the crowd for Julian but didn't see him, a pang of disappointment hitting him. He reminded himself that Julian had promised to be there. Taking a deep breath, he offered a practiced, gentle smile for the cameras, remembering the advice he'd been given. This was his life now, constantly under a lens. As they reached the end of the carpet, Leah quietly asked if he was nervous. He admitted he was still getting used to the media smile. She reassured him that he would get used to it. Once backstage, Ethan heard a stir from the entrance. Someone announced that Julian Croft had arrived. He turned and saw Julian walking the carpet, laughing and talking with another handsome, well-dressed man. It was Sebastian. A surge of jealousy, hot and sharp, went through him. But when Julian's eyes swept in his direction, Ethan quickly ducked back behind the curtain, ashamed of his own possessiveness. He rejoined Leah, who confirmed that it was Julian and likely Sebastian Shaw, the company's chairman, who had just returned to the country. Before Ethan could ask more, a cheerful voice called out to Leah. It was Sebastian with Julian in tow. Sebastian introduced himself to Ethan, his smile wide. Julian, arms crossed, made the formal introduction. Ethan greeted the chairman, his eyes darting to Julian, whose expression was unreadable. He worried he was the cause of Julian's mood. Sebastian suggested they go to the lounge. He then casually slung an arm around Julian's shoulders. Julian stiffened, hissing at Sebastian to get his hands off him. Sebastian just put a finger to his lips, signaling him to play along. Julian shot him a glare, then whispered a guess that this was some kind of test for Ethan. Sebastian didn't deny it, whispering back, asking if he wasn't curious to see how Ethan would react to a real rival. Julian was unimpressed, but Sebastian persisted, pointing out that their long-standing partnership made him a perfect candidate for the role of the one who got away. He told Julian to just play along. If things worked out between him and Ethan, he would expect a thank you. Julian deadpanned that he would cooperate for another 5% of company shares. Ethan, walking a few feet behind them with Leah, felt his stomach clench. He could see them whispering intimately but couldn't hear their words. The man, this Sebastian, was the one from the phone call, the one Julian wanted him to meet. They were clearly close, their shared history a bond Ethan could never hope to match. He felt like he had arrived too late. In the artist's lounge, Leo was sprawled on a sofa playing a game on his phone. Ethan, unable to contain his curiosity, asked if Julian and Sebastian were close. Leo yawned, confirming they were thick as thieves. Another actress, Diana, chimed in, joking that they were a legendary pair, so close that people at the agency used to write fanfiction about them. Only Chloe offered a serious answer, explaining that Sebastian had mentored Julian and that they had reformed the company together. They were comrades. The word echoed in Ethan's mind. He stood in a daze for the next half hour, his mind racing with worst-case scenarios. As the ceremony began, Diana found her seat next to Julian and Sebastian, immediately reporting that their little act was working perfectly. Ethan looked like he was about to short-circuit. Sebastian was pleased, but Julian was not. He told Sebastian he shouldn't interfere. Sebastian gently replied that Julian secretly wanted someone to give him a push. Diana agreed, saying their greatest wish was to see him find his soulmate. Julian grumbled that they just wanted to watch his drama unfold. but he knew they had a point. Deep down, he did want someone to pull him out of the mire he had created for himself. He looked across the hall. Ethan was helping Leah with her dress, shielding her from the flashing lights. Julian had personally chosen their black and white outfits, thinking only of making Ethan's debut perfect. He hadn't anticipated the sting of jealousy he would feel seeing Ethan so attentive to another woman. Diana suddenly shoved her phone in his face, showing him a trending hashtag, #EthanLeahChemistry. Julian's jaw tightened. He asked who had authorized a publicity push like that. Diana reminded him that he himself had approved of appropriate couple promotion. She then made him look at the red carpet photos, gushing about how good they looked together. Sebastian had to intervene, telling her to stop torturing him. Julian fell silent, stewing. The ceremony dragged on. After nearly an hour and a half, the award for Best Actor was announced. Alistair Page, a previous winner and one of Julian's ex-lovers, was the presenter. After drawing out the suspense, he announced Leo Hayes as the winner. Leo walked to the stage, the picture of humility, accepting the trophy from Alistair, who played the role of a gracious senior actor perfectly. From the audience, Ethan applauded, marveling at their ability to perform both on and off screen. As the event concluded with a performance by a popular music group, Ethan watched as the lead singer, another of Julian's current arrangements named Caspian, made a beckoning gesture towards someone behind him. Ethan turned. It was Julian. Panicked that he would miss his chance, Ethan quickly got up to head toward him during the commotion of the final group photo, but Julian was already gone. Caspian and Alistair were still on stage. He must have left with Sebastian. Ethan rushed through the departing crowd, dialing Julian's number as he headed for the emergency exit. When Julian answered, Ethan's words tumbled out in a rush, asking where he was. He heard Sebastian call Julian's name in the background. Then Julian said he was in the car about to, and the line went dead with a sound that could have been a muffled kiss. His mind went blank. He ran, blindly charging toward the parking garage. But he didn't know what kind of car Sebastian drove. He frantically called Diana for the information. By the time he found the black sedan, he was covered in sweat. He was about to pound on the window when he saw that only Julian was inside, sitting in the driver's seat. Julian lowered the window and told him to get in. Julian's question was cold. Why did he come looking for him? Ethan, bewildered, explained what he thought he heard. Julian's response was a blade, questioning what right Ethan had to be concerned. The words hit him like a bucket of ice water. He had overstepped. He was just a lover, a decoy. He remembered the S he'd been given. Fall in love, and you're out. Julian had discovered his feelings. He wanted to defend himself, but what could he say? To deny it would be a lie. Julian's silence was terrifying. Finally, Julian sighed, his gaze lowered. He told Ethan that it had all been a lie, a test to see if he had developed feelings. He said it was a misunderstanding and apologized on Sebastian's behalf. He told him to forget it ever happened. Then, without another word, he got out of the car and walked away, leaving Ethan stunned and heartbroken. Julian found Sebastian and Diana waiting in another car. He slumped into the seat, admitting he'd messed it up. His friends comforted him, but Julian felt only a deep sense of self-loathing. He had tried to force Ethan's hand, and it had failed. They were both trapped. He murmured that it was better to give up now before his feelings for Ethan grew any stronger. They ended up at a bar near Julian's apartment, where he proceeded to drink himself into a stupor. He flirted outrageously with Sebastian, who had to physically restrain him. At one point, he grabbed Sebastian's collar, his words slurred but sharp, demanding, "Ethan, what is your mouth for?" It was clear he was completely drunk. His friends managed to get him home. As Sebastian helped him out of the elevator, he was still ranting, complaining that Ethan's dog reminded him of him, and demanding to know who gave Ethan permission to help other women with their dresses. The elevator doors opened to reveal Ethan, wearing a cap and mask, standing in front of Julian's apartment door. Sebastian didn't miss a beat. He turned the disoriented Julian around and pushed him into Ethan's arms, saying, "I think you've got the wrong dog. Here's yours." Ethan caught him, whispering an apology in his ear. Julian, his brain fogged with alcohol, stared at him, confused, asking if he was Blaze. Ethan had to insist that he was Ethan, a person, not a Samoyed. Recognition finally dawned, followed by a sharp, painful stomp on Ethan's foot. Julian declared that he was annoying and told him to go away. But Ethan held on, guiding the drunk and belligerent Julian inside. After giving him some milk, Julian quieted down, slumping against him on the sofa. Ethan saw his chance. He gently explained that he hadn't spoken his true feelings earlier because he was afraid of being thrown away, of what he had been told would happen if he fell in love. He poured out his heart, then waited for a response. There was none. Julian had fallen asleep in his arms. The next morning, Julian woke with a splitting headache and a fragmented memory of the night before. He saw Ethan asleep beside him and had a sinking feeling. He checked the security camera footage from his front door. The recording of his drunken behavior made his face burn with shame. Just then, Ethan woke up. Seeing Julian's dark mood, he quickly promised never to speak of what he'd witnessed. Julian's voice was low and dangerous as he told him to get out. Ethan's heart broke. He got up and left the bedroom, but he couldn't just leave. He had traded 5 episodes worth of his salary for an extra day off just to see Julian. The misunderstanding had to be cleared. He opened the bedroom door again, his face flushed, and said quickly, "I love you," before slamming the door shut and retreating. Julian was dumbfounded. An immediate confession followed by a retreat. He got up and found the apartment empty, then heard a faint sound from the bathroom. The door was locked from the inside. Ethan refused to come out, convinced Julian would make him leave. Julian found himself trying to coax his new, self-proclaimed boyfriend out of the bathroom. He asked why Ethan was so certain he'd be kicked out. Ethan admitted that one of Julian's other lovers had told him about a man named Xavier and warned him that Julian discarded anyone who fell for him. "You idiot," Julian said through the door. "Why would you listen to a rival?" The logic hit Ethan with the force of a revelation. Of course, it had been a ploy, but his relief was short-lived as Julian continued, his voice softer now, admitting that being loved did, in fact, make him deeply uncomfortable. Through the door, they finally had the conversation they should have had from the beginning. Julian confessed his fears, his past traumas, and his inability to trust in love. He said that being heartless was harder than it looked. Ethan told him that his flaws were what made him real, what made him love him. The door clicked open. Ethan stood there, his eyes full of earnest emotion. He knew he couldn't promise a perfect future, but he knew that in that moment, he loved Julian completely. He asked if they could try, even if Julian kept his other arrangements. He just wanted to try having a real relationship. Julian looked at him, truly looked at him, and asked if he was sure. Ethan's answer was firm. He was. The concession that Julian could keep his other lovers was strange. It revealed a pattern in Ethan, a willingness to compromise his own happiness for the sake of others, a trait that Julian found both endearing and deeply worrying. He realized Ethan was not the simple, straightforward person he had appeared to be. He pulled Ethan close. He told him that as his boyfriend, He needed to have more confidence and stop sacrificing his own needs. And then, his voice dropping to a low command, he told him to forget everything that had happened the night before. Ethan's extra day off was cut short when Vanessa found out about his backroom deal with Marcus. She gave him an earful over the phone, and he was on the next flight back to the set. When Julian returned to his office, Sebastian was there, playing with Blaze. His friends looked at him expectantly, hungry for gossip, but Julian sent Sebastian away. He then told Diana that he and Ethan were now dating. It was a chaotic, uncertain beginning, but he felt it might be a good thing. He knew it wouldn't be easy. The issues with Alistair and the others were unresolved. He messaged Caspian to arrange a meeting to end their arrangement, but Caspian was about to start a national tour and wouldn't be free for months. Julian decided to wait. That night, he was woken at 3 a.m. by a call from his PR department. A scandal involving Alistair and a new young actor had broken online. The timing, just before Alistair's new film premiere, was clearly a deliberate attack. Julian immediately took charge, organizing an emergency meeting. He was exhausted, but he navigated the crisis with practiced efficiency. After the call, feeling the weight of it all, he found himself dialing Ethan's number before he even realized what he was doing. It was not yet 6 in the morning. Ethan answered, his voice thick with sleep. Julian felt a pang of guilt, but Ethan insisted he was happy to talk. For the next half hour, they spoke about nothing in particular, a quiet intimacy flowing through the phone line. As they got ready for their respective days, they kept the line open. Julian listened to the sounds of Ethan clumsily getting ready, a smile playing on his lips. Ethan confessed that knowing Julian was listening made him nervous. Julian teased him, asking why he was suddenly so shy. Ethan's reply was simple and direct. It was because he loved him, and being in love made him nervous and happy all at once. The directness still caught Julian off guard. He wondered aloud how Ethan had gone from being so reserved to so openly affectionate. Ethan just laughed, saying that now that the secret was out, there was no reason to hide it. He had discovered that saying I love you was a joy in itself, something he wanted to do over and over again.